I'm going to briefly introduce myself, and then I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. I prepared them to be ready to do like a quick 60 to 90 second intro so we can spend most of the time giving you some good information. But I'm Ri-Karlo Handy, founder of the Handy Foundation. It's a registered apprenticeship program and a work-based learning partner of many high schools throughout the state, specifically in the jobs and the trades that we have registered. So I'll give you kind of an overview throughout of like the different jobs, but they cover pretty much entry-level jobs into most every department in live, film production and television production. But this day is really about meeting these folks who I'll let them kind of share their own stories individually first. But we're going to get into it because they are, I guess, results of the success of our program and work-based learning and what's possible. So I'll just go down the line. Brooke, you go first.
So hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Brooke. I got started in the Handy Foundation spring 2023, actually. So I was in the first production coordinator program. Currently, I just finished wrapping up the American Music Awards as a coordinator, doing like the back end, accounting, legal, and on a much needed break with the Handy program, I have been working nonstop with like the network that I have built. So I enjoy the little breaks that I have got, and especially with the industry. My current training and background, of course, the Handy Foundation. But before that, I also have a business with my fiance. So we do video production. And that was kind of my boots on the ground, seeing how to be a coordinator, seeing how to be an assistant, which led me into the program to learn the true like standard operating procedures of that. And yeah, it's been really, really great. And I love the people at the Handy Foundation. They are so helpful. Highly recommend.
Hi, everyone. I am Dalia. I was one of the second cohort students for the Handy Foundation, and I love to be here because I'm a big nerd. For me, education has always been the way to move forward, and that's actually how I ended up finding out about the Handy Foundation. After graduating from a 4-year college, which everybody says you go to college and get your degree and you're gonna be successful, that didn't happen for me. I kept getting rejection after rejection after rejection. So I decided to enroll in community college classes. I got certified in Avid Media Composer, which is an editing program. And thanks to that certification, I was put into this special list to receive emails about the film program at the community college where I was. And that's where the Handy Foundation came into my inbox. I learned about it, and I thought it was too good to be true. It was talking about diversity, inclusion, and helping people of color, which, that's my mission. I love that. I applied, I got rejected, but I sent an email wondering what I could do better so I could be prepared for the next time. And that just one line got me an interview with Ri-Karlo and Monica. And after the interview, an hour later, I was into the Handy Foundation. I had gotten in, and it's been an amazing experience ever since then. This was 2021, and I've been working nonstop as an assistant editor in film and TV, and I'm just happy to be here with you.
Tell them some of the shows you worked on.
My first show was Acapulco, which was the first bilingual show for Apple TV. It was great because it was working with Eugenio Derbez. I'm Mexican, so he is like a big comedian for us. And from there, I went on to work in Kenan, National Treasure. Recently, I finished a movie with the crew from, why am I forgetting? Taika Waititi, does anyone know him? I just finished a movie with that crew, and that's been my journey.
Awesome. Next up.
Hi, my name is Javier. My love for film started like way a long time ago when I was little. I went to Reseda High School, and there we had like an acting program, which my professor told us, don't be an actor, it sucks. So he's like, do something else, do something like production. There's like a lot of jobs out there. So then I went to, that's when I realized, I'm like, oh, I could probably do something with this. So I went to LACC during my college years, and there we started doing a bunch of short films, and I started experimenting with different things and going through the creative process, and I figured the most satisfying part for me is editing. So in that school, you had to take like the 4 basic classes, which are 2 history classes and 2 just like production classes, and then you kind of choose your own route. And making those films, I found that the most satisfying part to me was when everything comes together at the end, because I'll be making like the worst film ever, I would think, and then you put in the music, you put in the sound effects, you cut it all together, and then it's really, really satisfying. So I probably had the same professor as Dahlia in LACC, and I got with Shields, yeah. And I got my Avid certification, and through a mutual friend that me and Dahlia have, that's where I found out about Handy Foundation. And I also thought it was too good to be true. Like, it just seems incredible. It seems something impossible. From there, I got my first job at Buena Murray, and I've been working pretty consistently for about 4 years now, since 2021. I was not at the company for a while, and I'm back there now. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Mr. Love, we're going to get to this brother on the end, but I think the most important thing to know about this panel and the purpose of this panel is additionally to these 3, going through the program and actually, working in the industry consistently and kind of how that happens for students. We want to talk about the connection between us and high schools and how we bring work-based learning to high schools. And so Mr. Love can speak to that really quick as well as he introduces himself.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Stephen Love. I'm high school. I teach at Lawndale High School, which is,
Lawndale?
All right. It's part of the Centinela Valley Union High School District in Los Angeles. I've been teaching for 12 years now. I run the Academy of Cinematic Arts, where I'm the coordinator of that program. It's a 4-year film program for the students from 9th through 12th grade. Before teaching high school, I came from industry. I worked as a property master, Local 44, on a couple of films, but that was a long time ago. So seeing a program like Handy come in, they just fill in the gaps. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So just not to bury the lead, so I'm going to start with you, Mr. Love, and just talk to us about our partnership and specifically what these folks did, because they came in as work-based trainers into his classroom environment. So just share with everyone that process real quick.
Absolutely. Our students go through, again, like I said, a 4-year process, and we go through the full gauntlet of film making, right? Everything from conception of idea all the way to distribution, including production. And there are some areas that I lack. Right, my background's art department, so I've had to learn camera and sound and editing and lighting and all of this, and it's just like it's a lot of information, and my brain's just like I can't handle all of that. So with a wonderful company like Handy, they fill in those gaps, right? Like actually, you're not just the gap filler; they're more of like the door opening, pretty much. And so we'll come in. You want me to explain like the process? Like,
yeah, I mean that was a great setup. I think the only thing I would look for now is just like a little color on, like, I don't know, because you specifically work with Dolly and Brooke, and then I'm gonna tee them up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we run several boot camps basically throughout the school day with Dahlia and Brooke here, where we brought in maybe about 15 to 20 kids per session, and we spent about 8 hours just going through their jobs and then getting the hands-on practice. That's the real key component of this whole thing. They take their knowledge and basically translate that to the students using our equipment and what we have, right? So that's a really awesome experience that we've had, and the kids keep talking about it to this day.
Perfect. So, like, I definitely want to pass it to you guys to talk about your end of that experience. But the thing that I want to emphasize is I think that is kind of where we kept saying fill in the gaps. So where we really are able to fill in gaps And what we want to talk about today is what are those gaps for all of you and for different schools, and how can work-based learning kind of fill in those gaps. But not only that, who are the professionals coming in? And so because we have, folks like Dalia and Javier, for example, that have been doing it for already 4 years, like, at your 5th year working full time in this business, on a particular trade craft, you should have like mastered that craft, right? And then the second part of that is, keeping up with the current workflows. And that's really what I want to talk to everyone about today, because that's where we can be of assistance. Like, we are updating our programs on a biannual basis based on how fast technology is moving. I mean, we'll touch on AI as well, but just for context, the things you can do with AI today, you could not do 4 months ago, right? And the things you're going to be able to do 6 months from now are things you cannot do today. And so moving at that pace requires instructing your students not just, hey, here's information, but hey, here's how you keep up, right? Here's the tools you need to stay ready so that 3 years from now, 2 years from now, a year from now, whenever you're in the workforce, you know how to do it, right? It's more so teaching them how to fish and less teaching them how to plate fish, right? They got to be able to know how to get it from the source. So I would love for you guys to both first kind of share not only some of the things you learned as a kind of coming into the workforce, but then also how you were able to like translate that into helping others. So you can go first, Brooke.
Yeah, wow, I really learned so much. So just coming into the industry in general and seeing as a coordinator where you're entry level, upper management, your job is to make sure that other people do their jobs. And something I did not mention, like with me in high school, I definitely was like unsure what I wanted to do in college. I went to college undeclared. And when I came into Mr. Love's class and all the other classes I spoke to, I told the students, like, it's okay if you are unsure of what you want to do right now, because I was you. I was going to college. I'm like, man, all my friends like know what they want to do. And so coming into the field, it really helped me understand that, okay, my personal skills, I'm just a great organized person in general. I love making people's lives easier. And in high school, I was like 2006, 2007, there weren't really careers that were exposed to us outside of traditional lawyer doctors or trade schools. So for me, I was like, I could be organized in these fields, but it doesn't really excite me. It doesn't make me happy. It's not something that I feel like is forward, and I love tech at that point. So coming into me in my later age, early 30s, that's really where I started figuring out like, oh, my organizational skills can be really productive in the film world. I first was exposed to the business world. Then I was referred over to Handy, where I see that not only are my skills valued, but they are so important. And so coming into Mr. Love's class, that was something that I really spoke to the students about. And a lot of them were just like myself at that age, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this was a thing. Because we all know the actors, we know the directors, we know the high profile or the celebrity roles when it comes to production and entertainment. So it brings me joy in the sense of being able to expose the kids to that, because I was them. I wish that there was someone that came in with other opportunities and speaking about different roles. And I love how Mr. Love said they were still excited, because on my side, it is production, operations, so it can be a little boring, legal, accounting, back end. But in that way, I showed the kids how they can be organized, but also how they can use AI where it's not thinking for them. Because I brought them through exercises where they were creating their own shows. So they were coming up with their own descriptions. I made them use their critical thinking skills, and then we used AI to bring movie posters together. And that blew them away, like, oh, wow. We started the class at 8:30 a.m., come 3 p.m., they're seeing their movie posters. And then I do have paid programs, so I was able to get them like 6-second video clips for some. Still kind of slow because it took too long. But some of them were able to see like, oh, wow, this is like a 6-second movie trailer. Like, we just made this happen in like less than 8 hours. So these are things that I feel the youth really, really need in this era as things are changing. And it really helps them open their eyes, because a lot of them are like, I didn't know that this was possible. I never thought about using AI like this, because I'm like, don't let it think for you, please. Please don't let it think for you, but use it as an assistant.
And then as we go to Dahlia, I think I really would love for you to share any specific, experiences on shows you worked on that basically you were able to translate to what the students were kind of dealing with in the classroom, or what you dealt with the students in classroom.
So for me, because of my own personal journey, I feel like there's been a lot of uncertainty when I was a kid. Even coming here, I'm an immigrant. I came when I was 13. And I remember when I was 13, trying to learn the language and just trying to navigate the system. All of those things made me feel so self-conscious, so shy, so introverted sometimes. And when I was in Mr. Love's class, I could sense that there were some kids that were feeling that way as well. And what I learned as I've grown in this industry is that it's not only the kids that are learning a new language or that are learning about a new system, it's actually all of us. Probably all of us here, we feel a little self-conscious, embarrassed, shy to ask questions or raise our voices. And something that I really, really loved from the Handy Foundation from the beginning, and this is from a lesson from you, Ri-Karlo, is don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and to be able to say that you don't know something or that you don't understand. Just be ready to show up and do your best. So in the shows, especially as I was starting, there were so many things that I didn't know how to do. But I knew that if I pretended that I knew how to do those things, I would probably fail and I would not be able to learn and advance in the career that I was trying to create for myself. So that's the mentality that has helped me move forward in this career and become successful, thankfully. And that's something that I took into the classroom with Mr. Love. I spoke about that inner voice that sometimes we have, which drives us from fear, but how to step outside of that so we can have the creativity and the freedom to explore and learn, even in a software. So many of us, we feel like we're not shaped for technology, and I will say, I always used to think, oh, technology is not for me, I'm just an artist. But no, I am an artist who can use technology, and who, whenever she doesn't know how to do it, I figure it out, and I ask questions, and I reach out to other people who I know can help me. And I remember specifically, Mr. Love, in your class, during break, one of your students came up to me, and he asked me, you said you were shy. How did you overcome that? Do you still feel that way? Like, how do you speak up? And to me, that was the highlight of that day, because I know that whatever we talked and your kids learned, whether it is technical or whether it is from an interpersonal standpoint, they're gonna take it. Your seniors are gonna take it to college and later on in their careers, and they're gonna succeed in anything that they want to do.
Awesome. So now I want to get deeper into like, what are these jobs and what are these skills and what are the kind of opportunities that could exist for not only your students from a work-based learning perspective, but then the idea that we are building this ecosystem in California of apprenticeship. So I don't know, how many of you guys know about pre-apprenticeship at all? Okay. How many of you are interested or already down the path of becoming your own pre-apprenticeship program? Okay, got it. And obviously after this, if there's anyone that is curious about that and has questions about it, we can cyber after. I'm gonna raise your hand, Maria and Monica in the background. Yeah, they can kind of usher you through any questions about that afterwards, if you're curious. But so overall, our apprenticeship programs, I'm trained in a lot of different areas. So Brooke said production coordinator, which I'll have you describe. We do lighting, we do assistant editor, we have a registered virtual production, which is where you learn Unreal Engine. So these are all like entry points. And if you want to think of the ecosystem as exposure, right, would be the first part. So that could happen in 8th grade, that could happen in 11th grade, but like you have to get exposed first to even know what's possible, right? And we do a program called Hollywood 101 where we kind of like give an overview for everyone of like what is the current state of the industry 2025? Like what are the jobs that are important? What are the workflows that people are using? And then from exposure, you go to the work-based learning, which is what we're talking about. Like, you know, there's levels to that too, right? And then obviously apprenticeship is the process of learning that skill and then also getting that first job where you get to actually put that skill to use. So with that, I want to pass it to Javier, and I want you to kind of go through a little bit of your resume, right? Because I think you specifically, I just remember, you know, that first time you started working in the first show, and then now you're like been called back to that same show because you know it pretty well and they trust you now, right? So just tell me about that journey from going to the first show to now coming back to the same show and being someone that knows how it works.
Well, when I first came in, the apprenticeship program.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Explain to them what your job is too, so that everyone knows what your job is.
I work as an assistant editor. We don't really get too much creative stuff to do, but we have a lot of technical stuff. So it's a lot of stuff that you could just learn. You know, you don't really need too much of a talent for it. So you just gotta learn all like sort of like specs, settings, and all these kinds of things, and learn the software. So my first program that I did with Ri-Karlo, well, my only program that I did with Ri-Karlo was the AE thing. And it was really cool. It was like everything that I did there, I got to use it on my first show. And it was very much...
and what show was that?
I was on The Real World. I was on The Real World Homecoming, and then I went... I did 2 seasons of that, and then I did a documentary about the challenge, and then I did a proper challenge season, and then Challenge All-Stars. And that was really, really good. Like... as a boot camp, where The Real World was a little bit easier, where it wasn't so many cameras. It was a really good entry point for me to start learning how to group and really get that practice in. And then...
And what's grouping?
So grouping, when you're out and you're doing a reality show, of course, there's like a bunch of cameras. Everybody has a microphone. You got the boom and all this stuff, right? And you bring it in, and it's not all... so you bring it all into a timeline, and... you make it basically so that it's one sequence that you could click through and have different cameras and switch through microphones depending on what you're working on. And I learned all like the true basics, I think, at that show. Then when I got to the challenge, that was like, I guess you could say like my real challenge, because there was GoPros, drones, every cast member had a camera on their head or a camera on their chest. And all those didn't have time code, so I had, like, you know, it's a lot of, that's where, like, the experience really came in, like, where does this go, where does this go? And that was a very cool, unique experience. But when I did a docuseries with them, and then I got to do another one later on that had a lot of different types of archival footage, I did a show called My Happy Place, which was about, like, certain celebrities going out on vacation, and they had a lot of stuff about, like, their past movies and stuff, right? So, like, Simulu was one of the cast members, so we'd download Chang-Chi and, like, Barbie or whatever, certain clips, and then organizing it. So being on the challenge Untold History and having all those Excel sheets and having all these clips organized opposed to doing all this grouping really helped me when I came into that. And then I also did this other show, which was like a clip show, where they would get like a viral video of like a Karen going into a store and like having an outburst. And we do string outs, and that was a whole different type of workflow where I learned a lot of different tricks, like something going offline and then going back into and doing this thing called batch import. And so when I went, it was kind of like, this is where I started, this is where like my home, and then I went out and did all these different companies, and now that I'm back where I started, I have all these new tips and tricks that I learned that I can use that I didn't have before. And now I came into the show and everything's so much easier and it runs so much smoothly for me when like at the beginning, like the most simple thing was like the hardest task. And like it would take me like an hour to do something like bring in like music. Well, maybe not that, right? But
Yeah.
like different things that were so hard, and like going around and then coming back, it just feels, yeah, it feels cool. It feels like I know what I'm doing now.
That's
opposed to,
awesome.
Like 4 years ago.
Yeah, give it up. And the cool thing is, I want to point out is Javier, when you first started our program, tell them about what you were doing for a living at that time, and it was like in the middle of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I was working at a Mexican restaurant, doing caterings and stuff like that, and then I would do DoorDash afterwards when I was off of that, and then I had like a little landscape thing on the weekends, so a lot of work.
And now, does this job now cover what that used to cover?
Oh yeah, tenfold. Yeah.
Got it. So look, I'm going to come to Mr. Love and Brooke next, but I do just want to point out that essentially, got it, for everything? Okay, got you, perfect. He's our timekeeper. Okay, so yeah, we're almost to Q&A time, but what I want to say really, I think the most important thing is that in this business, you will not learn everything you need to know from school or from high school or even from college, right? But there are basic skills and workflow and like the basics, right? So for example, you may not be a Pulitzer Prize winning writer just from out of your first writing class, but if you know how to spell and you know how to put together words and you know how Word works, you can build on that, right? And then you get into the right work environment. And so that's really what the opportunity is for the work-based learning. You can be able to step into an opportunity that you may have through an apprenticeship or through, and be able to speak the language, right? Like be able to say the right words and say the right software and say, look, I know the basics, like Dahlia said. I don't know everything, but I know enough to be helpful. And I think that's kind of the first step, because a lot of times, unfortunately, people have these dreams and aspirations of being in these industries, but they only may know kind of how it works from an outside looking in level and not the inside conversation, right? So, and we all know, if you're talking to someone that's a teacher, for example, because they may say certain key words and they know about certain key documents or certain key policies that only teachers really know about, right? And it's the same thing with any other industry. So what I would like to do is Brooke, I want you to share, and each of you actually briefly share, because your workflow is a little different, Dahlia. So briefly share like what your job and your role is, and then I want to come to you, Mr. Love, as to wrap that part up, and really talk about what the takeaways were from your students after learning about these different jobs, right? So Dahlia and Brooke, if you guys can do that pretty tight, and just share what your job is and what your workflow is, and some of the shows that you actually did this work on.
So with me being a production coordinator, my workflows is all back-end operations in production. They highly rely on Google Workspace. So I always tell the youth, like, if you're great in Google, keep that up. If you're great at knowing formulas, we use so many Excel documents, Google Sheets, and I know that is heavily used in school because I remember using it. And some of the shows that I have worked on, like I got placed with This Is the Zodiac Speaking, so that was a true crime. Worked on that where I stepped in and was like, woo, okay, I understand what my skill sets were, but what I've learned, literally every show is different. There's not one process. There's a foundation as a coordinator of how to do things, but I do have kind of that technical creative freedom to come in and optimize things. I try to introduce AI, is still, a little pushback, but I use it for myself to help keep me organized, to audit my processes, to audit things that I have to follow up on with my executives. And that also led me to a lot of other shows. One of the biggest shows that I've worked on is with Love Megan, so working with the royal family and dealing with operating on set, dealing with security, dealing with high-level people, and trying to put operations into that when sometimes all you have is your iPhone. There's been shows where we have gotten our things stolen in Vallejo, So figuring out how to problem solve without the technology that you're used to being used on set. In all of these, for me, just as a coordinator, my main workflow is like problem solving. So if it's not Google Workspace, it is just real life. We're here on set. How can we figure it out? I organize all the people. I'm like the nucleus on set. So my workflow always changes, but I always tell the youth, like, if you're great at being organized, and I always tell people in groups, like, if you're the one that's like, my team is slacking on a group project and I'm getting us together, hey, this job is for you. And I love to tell youth that because I remember being that person in my group projects back in school.
Yeah, problem solving is huge because at the end of the day, most productions are a brand new business that's never existed before. If you really are doing something innovative, it hasn't been done before this particular way with this particular group of people. And so that's some of the intangible skills that, have to be built up from a high school level, right? Like someone that's really willing and ready to pivot as those things come up. Dalia, so tell them what your job is and how it differs from what Javier does.
Okay, so I'm also an assistant editor, but I work in scripted TV and film. The difference is basically movies and TV shows that are scripted. We have a script. My workflow, it's usually the same. It also varies depending on the show because every show is different. But we receive dailies as an assistant editor. It is my job to look at all of them, look at the paperwork, make sure that everything that was shot the day before we have so we can prepare and give to the editor who is the one who's going to assemble the story. Another part of my job is to do all of the temporary sound, which is the most fun thing to do because basically you build the entire world and you start guiding the audience about what to pay attention to or what not to pay attention to with sound. We deal with a lot of visual effects because I'm sorry to break it down to you, but a lot of what you see in TV and film has a lot of visual effects. We go through so many phases of editing an episode or editing a movie. It has to go through so many eyes, and as an assistant editor, I am the first person and the point of reference between the editor and wherever that story goes to, whoever gets to watch it and give us notes. One of the last steps for me as an assistant editor is once everything is finished, the episode is locked or the movie is locked, we start preparing everything so we can turn over, meaning we can give to the official professional sound team who is going to make everything sound better than what we did, the official artist for visual effects, and that's what you are going to be seeing on TV, the final result of that.
And just as a last thing, can you just give us an example of maybe a challenge you overcame or like a particular show that was especially maybe a little more challenging and you had to learn on the job, but using your existing skills as a starting point?
Yeah, so one of the shows that I did, the company You Keep, I was hired as an assistant VFX editor. Turns out the day I get to do the job, I am the only VFX person there. There's no VFX editor, and visual effects, that's something that I can do as an assistant editor, but I am not a VFX editor. So every single episode was a big challenge for me because I was talking not only to the editors and how they wanted the visual effects to look, but also to the vendors and trying to negotiate also like cost of things, which is something that I should not be doing because I'm also that was also not part of my job. But at the end of that season, I ended up loving it. I felt like I was wearing so many hats and I was running my own little show within the show. But I could use all the skills that I had learned from being an assistant editor, from how to talk to people, from how to organize meetings and communicate things. So it all kind of came full circle for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of intangible thing that is not, it's hard to teach, but I think what my kind of thought process on that is the more you give people opportunities to show up and answer a challenge like that, it just takes practice, right? And but the younger you get started with that, the more successful you'll be. And so, Mr. Love, with that, tell us about the experience and maybe how that shifted your students from before they got this work-based learning to after.
Definitely. Well, it's something they're still talking about, or at least all the way up until the very last day of school. I haven't worked in the industry for like almost a decade, so my systems of operations is a certain way. And when they came in and kind of, brought it industry standard, they were like, oh, this is so much faster than what you've taught us. I was like, well, that's why they're here. So great, I'm glad you got something from that. They also think they can use AI for everything now. I was like, no, you cannot. But for the skills that you taught them, absolutely. We are on a traditional 6-period schedule, so we have an hour class for what we do, which makes it a little difficult in the production aspect. And one thing that they definitely took away was how to speed up their workflow process, and also me. Like, I'm sitting there. I don't know if you guys noticed. I was taking notes like the whole time, but definitely speeding up their process. And something that Brooke had that I thought was really awesome. Our school is a Google school, and our students go through the full Google suite, and they get certified in that. And so for them to see Brooke, who's working actively like in industry, like on a Google Doc, they're like, what? This is like not just on my little Chromebook. Like, this is like industry uses this. So that was really awesome for them to kind of see and put a little bit more respect on the Google suite. Like, and to see the templates that you were using and things like that. My templates are so old and just like outdated, and they're just like, what is tape and what is, but yeah, I think that's something that was a great takeaway for them, and I would love to continue that work with them. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. It's funny, I have a 14-year-old going into 9th grade, and I had a CD player, and so I showed him the CD, and I actually posted it. If you follow me on Instagram, it's funny because he spent a full like 3 minutes trying to figure out how to open this CD and wondering what it actually did and like how it worked. He was like, where's the button, But that is the world we're in, and it's funny because technology does move that fast, right? Like about every 5 years, there's a whole different technological experience of life that wasn't available 5 years before, and that's just what it is, right? So I think we're transitioning into Q&A now. We wanted to save some time for questions, but the whole purpose of this panel. And one, thank everyone for coming. Give them a hand. Thank you for all of our panelists. But the purpose of this is really just to share kind of what's possible with work-based learning, that connection. And we're just starting a lot of this. So a lot of the folks that we're working with in 8th and 9th and 10th grade now, are going to be the people hopefully sitting on this panel 5-6 years from now talking about their experience. And that's our goal with apprenticeship, is to really create this partnership that some kids are going to get a little skills, and that'll help them know what college they want to go to or what their next step is, what trade school they want to go to. Some of them will be ready to go right into the workforce at 18, 19 as an apprentice. But I think that's an individual journey, and we just want to provide them with all the possible tools for the most success possible. And I hope you guys enjoyed that, and thank you to our panel again.